Hey everyone, Michael Park here for CreativeCow.net. Let me welcome you to this first project in the Creative Cow Master Series DVD, Practical Particles, featuring Trapcode Particular 2.0. Now, as I was flipping through the TV channels the other night, I was really struck by how many commercials have some sort of particle integration for their logos at the end. Now, this might not be the most complex use of particular in the world, but it might be the most often used. I thought it'd be a perfect way to start out our exploration of particular, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we need to do is import the layer source or the logo we're going to be integrating. So in the project window, double click and bring in the generic logo that I've created for you in the project file. If you want to use your own logo, that's fine. This one is there for your convenience. Please note that the size is 470 by 410. You can use yours whatever size you want, just make the appropriate adjustments. Let's go ahead and throw this into a new composition. Now we're going to be using this as a layer source for our particular particles. Now you might be asking yourself, why do we pre-comp this logo if we're just going to be using it as a source for our particles? Well, that's a great question, and here's the answer. If you want to make any adjustments to your logo and have them show up in the particular particle colors or anything else, you need to do it in a pre-comp. Particular will read the layer in the same composition as it's in without any of the effects applied. For example, if you wanted to key out the white here, you need to do it in a pre-composition. The other nice thing about pre-comps is they're modular. That means you can drag and drop anything you want in here, logo, picture, whatever, and it'll automatically update the effect. Well, let's go ahead and key out this white. We are going to be using it over a white background, but if we leave the white in here, then you'll have a whole bunch of white particles, and that's not exactly what we want. So with the layer selected, choose Effect, Keying, Luma Key, and change it to Key Out Brighter, and change the threshold from 0 up to about 253. That should key pretty much everything out, and if you want to, you can feather the edges 2 pixels. There we go. Now we've got our source layer set up. Next, let's create a new composition, and let's choose Composition, New Composition, and we'll call this Explode, and let's make this duration 3 seconds long. Now what we're going to use this comp for is Particular doesn't have any native way of generating or creating a logo from exploded particles. So the best way to accomplish this is actually to do it in reverse. Explode the layer out and then time remap it so that all the particles come back together into a one cohesive logo. Yeah, pretty slick, huh? Well, with the explode composition selected, let's drag our generic logo pre-comp into the timeline. There we go. Now this is where you need to position your logo wherever you want it for the final shot. I'm going to leave mine right in the middle. Make sure you turn this into a 3D layer. If you don't, and you try to select this as a source layer for a layer emitter in particular, you'll get a nasty error. The next thing we need to do is create a solid layer to put particular on. So from the menu, choose Layer, New, Solid, or hit Ctrl Y. Let's name this Particular. Make sure it's comp size. The color doesn't matter, but for consistency, I like to change the layer color to something that's going to be similar to the final color of the particles, just to keep things straight in the timeline. And choose OK. Next, with the particular layer selected, choose Effect, Trapcode, Particular. The first thing we need to do is tell Particular we're going to be using a layer to emit the particles. So from the emitter dialog box, let's roll that down, and instead of emitter type point, choose Layer Grid. Now what this does is allow us to select the amount of particles in the X direction and the amount of particles in the Y direction to create an array from which the particles will be emitted. The way we do that is we come down here to the grid emitter and change it from 5 particles in the X and 5 particles in the Y to something that will fill in the logo a little bit better. So for our case, I'm going to be using 800 in the X and 600 in the Y, 1 particle in the Z, and this will give us an array of particles of about 480,000 particles. Let's change the emitter size to 1, and let's scroll down the layer emitter, and instead of none, let's select our generic logo layer. Once again, make sure it is 3D. So I'll scroll that down and choose generic logo. Now when we scrub through here, You can see our layer is emitting a whole bunch of particles. It's alright, but I think we need to change some settings to make it look a little bit better. The first thing is, I don't think the particles are really getting out of frame fast enough, so let's change the velocity from 100 to 500. There we go. And we can change the velocity random down to about 5%. Next thing I want to do is change the particle a little bit. So scroll down the particle rollout and leave the life at 3. Let's change the sphere feather from 50 down to 20. And let's change the size to 1.5. And let's alter the size random from 0 to 50. That just breaks up some of the uniformity of the particles and gives us a little more visual interest. Leave the transfer mode as normal, and let's go ahead and put a white background in so we can get an idea of what this is going to look like. So from the menu, choose Layer, New, Solid, call this BG, and let's make it white. Click OK, and we'll drop this in the bottom, and we can turn off our generic logo. Let's make this a guide layer so that it's not going to show up in the final composition. And let's do a quick RAM preview to see what we've got. And here we go. Not too bad. The only thing that I don't like is if we pause it here at the end, you can see that there's particles still in the frame and you can see them exploding out into the background, and that's not exactly the look that I'm after. What I really want is a plain white background and then all the particles come in from the sides. So the way to accomplish that is to change some of the settings, specifically the direction. So back in your particular settings, change the direction from uniform to disk. Now after a quick RAM preview, you can see that all the particles kind of blow out in the X and Y direction only and not in the Z direction. They explode outwards, which is exactly what we want. Now we need to create a new composition. Let's call this Final Comp, and make this one a duration of 8 seconds and choose OK. Once again, let's put a new solid, call this BG, background layer, make sure it's comp size and click OK. And from the project folder, let's drag the explode pre-comp down over top of the background layer, and let's right click and choose time reverse layer. Now after a quick RAM preview, you can see that all the particles fly in from the outside towards the middle to create the logo. Exactly what we want. Now let's finish this up. We need to put our logo into the middle for the particles to come in and form. So let's take our generic logo pre-comp and drop it right above our explode layer. Now if you have your logo offset in your explode layer, you're going to have to similarly situate your generic logo in this composition in the same XY position. We need to go ahead and move the starting position of this layer down just to when these particles come together to integrate. So let's zoom in here and move this on down. So page up, page down. There we go. Looks pretty good. Now let's do another quick RAM preview to see what we have. And there you go. All the particles come together and integrate into your logo. Now as a final stylistic option, let's say you're doing this logo integration for a satellite TV company and you wanted it only to show the particles in a specific box in the middle and wanted the rest to be white space. You could easily accomplish this. I think probably the easiest way to do that would be to create a new solid layer, and let's make this maybe, I don't know, 600 wide by 400 tall, and click OK, and put it directly above the explode pre-comp. And let's change the track matte on the explode layer from none to alpha matte white solid. So now as you can see, you're limiting where your particles show up based upon the alpha matte of that layer. If you wanted to, make it a little bit different size, you can drag it, open it up just a little bit, and do whatever suits your needs. Now after a quick RAM preview, you can see the particles are bound by the alpha matte of that solid layer and integrate to form your logo. Well, that's it for this project. Join me in the next project where we're going to take this idea one step further and change the generic spherical particles to custom textures that you'll be using to integrate into a logo. Until next time, this is Michael Park for CreativeCow.net.